Welcome to Mixed Combat Radio. We are here today to break down BJ Penn's potential last fight in MMA. Not that he's going to say so, but I think most fans would say it's time to hang it up. I'm here today with my brother from Dubai, Kimo. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well, man. How are you?
I'm great, man. It's just it's raining and it's like thunderclouds here in LA, which is weird. But I'm glad to talk some MMA with somebody that also likes boxing too. So I mean that's rare nowadays. So it's interesting to get your perspective on these fights.
It is quite rare actually, and I've never really had a problem with any combat sport, to be honest. I mean, I follow both MMA, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, you name it, man. So as long as there's punches being thrown, I'll watch.
Exactly. Now, what's your perspective on BJ Penn because obviously it's towards the end of his career. Like if he loses bad in this fight, I can definitely see him retiring again, and I'm using air quotes. So BJ Penn was once lauded as a for sure one of the greatest, and he hasn't won a fight in almost like 6 years. It's tough to defend BJ Penn at this point. What's your perspective on him and his career?
Oh man, I mean, to be honest, it's quite a sensitive subject for me because he's the guy that really got me into MMA. When he was at his prime at lightweight, just smashing guys, like I was a huge fan. Not just because of the skill and just the overall aggression that he fought with, but he kind of had this bloodlust about him. He was just a pure warrior, and it was kind of rare to see also because he came from quite a wealthy family in Hawaii, but the dude just loved fighting, and I love that about him, man. The epic footage of where he's licking the blood and all that shit. I mean, I love that. Yeah, I'm pretty bloodthirsty when it comes to MMA. So I was a huge fan of him, and given the age he's at right now, given the wear and tear on his body, given what he's just, what he's gone through in his career, I'm really scared about this fight. I mean, he basically retired twice already, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. One time he kind of semi-retired in the ring. I think that was after the Diaz fight where he said, I can't come home to my kids like this anymore. And then he came back again, and then he got his ass whooped by, I think it was McDonald, and then another time by Edgar again. And he just looked he looked worse and worse each fight. So I think, I hate to say it, but I think it's going to be bad tomorrow, man. Tonight, actually. What do you think? I think it's going to be quite a vicious beatdown.
Well, it's on Sunday, I believe. It's not tonight. It's not.
Oh, it's tomorrow then, is it?
Yeah,
okay.
It's on Sunday. Mm-hmm. It's one of those weird Sunday cards. But it's interesting because you have BJ Penn's almost a story of two different people. Because like BJ Penn pre that second George St. Pierre fight, because I feel like for some reason that fight was a breaking point. At the BJ Penn after George St. Pierre 2 was a different BJ Penn than before that. And remember, this guy was a guy that got his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in like 3 years. That's unheard of today.
Yep.
He was the first American to win a gold medal in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then he fought for a UFC title in his third fight against Jens Pulver and lost a very close split decision. This was a guy that also, was a star in the lower weight classes before there was ever a star in those lower weight classes. He really was the reason the UFC brought the lightweight division on. And then you look at just the story of him having contract issues with the UFC, basically beating Matt Hughes, going up a weight division, beating Matt Hughes via first round rear naked choke, and then taking his ball and going home and going to Japan and fighting Takanori Gomi. It was like BJ Penn always was just like the guy that went to the beat of his own drum. He fought Lyoto Machida at a catchweight of like 192, 196 in Japan. This guy went and fought K1. BJ Penn was just a freak of nature in a sense. He was one of those throwback guys that would literally go anywhere and fight anyone. And that shows in his record, unfortunately. He's 16-10-2. But then again, you look at the guys he beat, you look at that run he had at the lightweight division in the UFC, and that was greatness. And the pay-per-view buys he was doing in that run, it was anywhere between 600,000 pay-per-view buys to 800,000 pay-per-view buys, and that's unheard of, really. Even nowadays, other than Conor McGregor, no one makes that type of pay-per-view buy rate in those divisions at 155 and lower. Even Canelo struggles at times to do that buy rate, and he's at 154. It's roughly the same weight division. And it's intriguing that this Hawaiian wealthy guy, he did not need a fight ever. He didn't almost need to work for the rest of his life. He was that wealthy in Hawaii. His family was, but yet he was the road warrior that went everywhere. And it's sad because this fight is an example of that. He's fighting Yair Rodriguez, and I've talked briefly about Yair Rodriguez, I think, to you, and how I think he is like a John Jones type of prospect. Obviously that's a big name to throw out, but in terms of where John Jones was maybe 10 fights into his career, I see similarities with Yair Rodriguez, and just his fluidity, his unorthodox striking, his unrelenting cardio. His fight with Alex Caceres was just impressive because I thought he was going to break at some point in terms of cardio, and he kept throwing switch kicks, spinning tornado kicks, going for rolling, knee bars and stuff like that. Like, you don't see that. He is a new age fighter, and he's going against the old age fighter. Both are prodigies. I think this main event is bittersweet in so many ways. And like you, I am really worried about BJ Penn going into this fight. I'm definitely going to pick Yair Rodriguez. I think Yair Rodriguez, in a 5-round fight, could potentially finish BJ Penn. If the BJ Penn we saw in the Frankie Edgar third fight shows up, that'd be bad, because he looked horrendous in that fight. So, what's your official prediction on this bout?
I mean, obviously I'm going to go with Yair as well, and I think you kind of described his talent perfectly. He's just one of these guys he's still pretty raw. He has a lot of refinement still to get in his career, but
he's there to be countered.
It's like you say, he gets quite creative in there, and he can throw some wild shit. So, but I think overall, just the pace, the accuracy, and his overall athleticism is just going to be too much. I mean, BJ what is he now? He's
30.
What's his age? Right?
37.
38, right?
38. Yes, I think it's 38. I'll look it up right now.
38. Which especially in the lighter weight classes is extremely old. At heavyweight maybe you can kind of get by sometimes at that kind of an age, but BJ has lost a lot of his athleticism and his explosiveness as well over the years. You can kind of see it, and the peak of it was that fight with Edgar where he had that weird stance. He was just basically standing there getting tagged.
His feet really close together. It was like he was hopping around in the cage. It was weird. I've never seen a fighter do that, especially since BJ Penn never fought like that before. Very strange, very strange. I mean, normally he's got a bit of a different style to him, but that was, again, just weird. And BJ is even though he's so talented, he's a bit of a strange guy. And I think at this point he's so depleted that unless his chin has really held up over the last couple of years, because let's face it, this guy has maybe the best chin in MMA. Like, it's a Hall of Fame chin. It is he's never been knocked down. Like, that is a fact. Like, he got finished in the Frankie Edgar fight, but that was due to ground strikes. He's never been knocked down in the UFC or in his MMA career. And he fought Lyoto Machida. Like, think about that for a second. He fought fucking Lyoto Machida, who's knocked out tons of people at the light heavyweight division, and yet he can't knock out a lightweight. Yeah,
BJ is crazy, man. Given the weight classes that he's fought at and the amount of punishment that he's taken, I mean, the guy has just an incredible chin, and it seems like his body is just made for fighting. He's got a great chin, he's got great flexibility as well on the ground with his jiu-jitsu.
He was at one time a great athlete.
He's got it all.
He was at one time a great athlete, and he was like a Yair Rodriguez sort of prototype, super athletic, very dynamic and extreme and unorthodox in the techniques he did. Because I remember like the jiu-jitsu he was throwing up against certain fighters in the UFC way back in the day was really new. Obviously BJ Penn's game has never really evolved, but you put these guys in their respective points in MMA history, they're prototypes.
Yeah, what I always liked about BJ as well was his top game. We never really saw his skill from the back in MMA. I mean, probably if you watch some of his old jiu-jitsu, if there's any of that footage out there, I haven't really seen much of it, but you might see him work off his back. But in MMA, it's always that top game that's just vicious, And he took a lot of good wrestlers down as well that were bigger than him. I remember him just out wrestling John Fitch, for example, which say what you want about Fitch. It's not an easy thing to do.
You can make the argument John Fitch is a top 3 welterweight of all time. Like George St. Pierre.
If you look at his record, yeah.
George St. Pierre, Matt Hughes, and then John Fitch. You can make that argument.
Yeah, I think you get a lot of people disagreeing with you just because of the fact that he was a very unpopular guy. But his record speaks for itself. I mean, you definitely make a strong point for that because he had a run for God knows how many fights, and only GSP really could beat him in his prime.
Yeah, it was like an 8-fight win streak. At the point, it was the longest win streak without a UFC title shot. And obviously, that's been beaten with guys like Max Holloway, Tony Ferguson. But at one point, John Fitch had that record for beating the most guys without getting a title shot.
Yep, exactly. So, what's your take on BJ moving to Jackson's? Do you put any merit in that? Do you see anything that can do for him at this point in his career?
Look, I would never discount Greg Jackson and Mike Ricklejohn because they are, in my opinion, the greatest trainers in MMA. And look how they revitalized Andrei Arlovski's career. Arlovski was at one point, chinny as hell. He's gonna get knocked out by the wind. And Arlovski almost came back for a heavyweight title shot in the UFC. So, I mean, they have some sort of ability to get veterans that extra juice. I've seen that. Same with Rafael Cordero and King's MMA with guys like Fabricio Verdum, Rafael Dos Anjos. You see certain trainers that are very good at getting those veterans that extra step. Robbie Lawler with ATT, another great example. So there is a trend, I would say, of old guys catching fire for one last big run. We've seen that in MMA quite often, and very recently, I would say as well. Now, it is BJ Penn, though. And I think BJ Penn, like you said, the amount of fights he's taken against who he's taken and the amount of punishment he's taken in those bouts is almost really unheard of, in a sense, at that division. And I just do not see him catching fire one more time. Now, do I think Greg Jackson and Mike Ricklejohn are going to fix those awful technical flaws he had in the Frankie Edgar third fight? Yes. I think BJ Penn will not look like that, but I don't think that's going to have any dramatic effect on the outcome of this bout. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. Well, one thing I found very strange, though, when I was watching the countdown, all of a sudden I see him back with Jason Perillo. Did you just go there on a little fight exchange just to train there for a few months, and then you went back to Perillo, who's going to corner you, or what's the deal with that?
Here's what happened. So in the Frankie Edgar fight, do you remember that Jason Perillo was only in his camp for about a week, and actually BJ Penn was training solely in Hawaii with his buddies, and Jason Perillo has even gone on the record saying, "Do not blame me for what BJ Penn looked like in that third Frankie Edgar fight. I had no input on that tactic, that strategy, that style." And so I don't blame Jason Perillo for that matchup. And I don't really think that Jason Perillo is a bad coach. Look what he's done with Michael Bisping. He's rejuvenated Michael Bisping's career, for example. So I don't think he's a bad coach. I think that he went to Greg Jackson's for 3 or 4 weeks out of his camp for this fight, and then spent the rest of the time in LA with Jason Perillo. So he's not even in Hawaii, I believe, at this point. I could be wrong. Well, obviously at this point he's not. But I mean, in terms of his camp, I don't think he was in Hawaii for that long. So I think that's good. I think that him not being in Hawaii with all of his yes men, because unfortunately I think that's been sort of to blame for his unusual matchmaking at times, is a lot of yes men around him saying, "No, BJ, you're awesome. You're the greatest. You can fight anyone, anywhere." And him unfortunately going, "Yeah, I am the greatest," because BJ Penn's that egotistical, and all these fighters are. That's just they all think they're the best on any given night. And when you have a bunch of yes men around him, BJ Penn said yes. And it's weird with this matchup because he was originally matched up with Dennis Seaver, That fight fell through. Then he was matched up with Cole Miller. That fight fell through. Then he was matched up with Ricardo Lamas. That fight fell through. And this all happened this year. And now he's matched up with Yair Rodriguez. So I don't understand the matchmaking on the UFC standpoint, because like a guy like Dennis Seaver or Cole Miller, veterans who have technical flaws, who are relatively at the same point in their career as BJ Penn, makes more sense than a young hungry prospect like Yair Rodriguez or a contender like Ricardo Lamas. So I don't know what the UFC is doing. And with every fight that's fallen through, they seem to give him a harder matchup in a sense. So I honestly think this is the UFC sort of saying "fuck you" to BJ Penn, and it's not like the BJ Penn and the UFC have had a long-standing good relationship. Like I've pointed out earlier, they've been in court together against each other. This is not a lovely, bro relationship with each other. Him and Dana White don't FaceTime all the time. So I don't know. Like I said, I think Yair Rodriguez kind of torches BJ Penn at this point. I think no matter what BJ Penn can do, his time is done. Father time has caught up to him. It's just one of those things. Like Bernard Hopkins. No matter what Bernard Hopkins could have done against Joe Smith Jr., he was going to get knocked out of the ring. Because you know why? Because father fucking time always creeps up.
Yeah. One point I want to throw in, though, and that's, I kind of disagree with you on one thing. I think that Perillo is not a good coach. And I've every time I've seen him in BJ's corner, especially when things weren't going BJ's way, I've just been so incredibly frustrated, especially with the advice that he was giving him, man. I just can't stand it. And he might be a decent boxing coach, and am I really going to say that he's responsible for Bisping knocking out Rockhold? No, I thought that was a combination of circumstances, but I'm not a big fan of the BJ and Perillo relationship. And you talked about yes men. I think Perillo's a yes man. I think all that guy has to add is just doing the mitts and maybe giving some stand up advice. But apart from that, I don't think he's a true mixed martial arts coach to be honest.
Oh, I'll completely agree with that. I'll rephrase my statement of him being a good coach as him being a good boxing coach, because I've been in the gym with him training like Michael Bisping and BJ Penn, and just seeing him train those guys, because I've been around like Manny Robles, I've been around Abel Sanchez, I've been around these other good trainers that are boxing trainers, right? And I see that Jason Perillo is a good boxing trainer. Like he could be a boxing trainer for actual boxers, and I wouldn't laugh at it. But I definitely agree with the idea that he is an awful cornerman, because I think being a cornerman is a little bit different, or even a head coach is different than being a boxing coach. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And what, for example, when BJ was getting smashed by GSP on the ground, you could almost see the panic in the corner, because they didn't know what to advise him. All they were saying was, "Oh, BJ, you can fucking do it, man. Go get him." Like, yeah, that's not really gonna cut it when you've got a freak welterweight wrestler that's taking his ass down and smashing him on the ground. So yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from with the that the UFC is kind of setting him up for one last goodbye. And it's not a bad thing for the UFC to get Yair to put a big name on his resume,
No, I definitely agree. I think that for Yair, this is a great opportunity. He gets a true legend, Hall of Famer like BJ Penn on his record on the way out, and people are going to say, "Oh, he beat BJ Penn." All the casuals are going to say that. Hardcores may go, "Oh, but BJ Penn was pretty much done." There's an asterisk to it, similar to like Danny Garcia beating Eric Morales. Like, no one goes back and says, "Oh, Garcia beat Morales." Like, no one gives a fuck about that fight because Morales was old as shit, right? Like, it's gonna be similar to that, but there's some casuals that think that, "Oh, he beat Eric Morales," right? Like, there's gonna be that similar effect, I think, with this matchup. I think like you said, it's a good matchup. It's definitely a good, I think, experience for Yair Rodriguez to get in there for 5 rounds against a guy like this. Is going to be a huge confidence booster. I feel like Yair Rodriguez, whatever version we see of him in this bout, is going to look nothing like the version we see in the next bout because of the experience he gets in this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me play kind of devil's advocate to both of our stances, right? What if, and I say what if BJ actually has a proper fucking game plan, that he developed with Greg Jackson's,
And he
and
executes
he's
it.
gonna try,
Yeah.
and he executes it, and he takes this guy down and chokes him out. Then what?
You know what's sad is that then we're gonna get BJ Penn versus like Jose Aldo. Like,
Oof, that would be bad.
it's not
That
because
would be
like
very bad.
anyone will want it, but BJ Penn. You know that, right? Like, he's the type of guy that like, oh, I just beat this prospect, I can go beat Jose Aldo.
Oh yeah.
You know,
The dude honestly has the craziest will, right? I mean, that's the reason why he's still fighting.
I think like you said, I think the way that BJ Penn defeats Yair Rodriguez is to counter one of these really unorthodox strikes that Yair throws, takes him down, and works his jiu-jitsu. Because obviously jiu-jitsu on paper is way better than Yair Rodriguez. But I think getting in on the inside is going to be so difficult with Rodriguez. He is just so good at chaining his unorthodox strikes. Because he'll chain like a spinning heel kick to a spinning, midsection kick. Like he's the type of guy that like, chains his combinations with unorthodox strikes so well that I think even a guy like BJ Penn is really going to be frustrated by that type of length and distance. Because Yair Rodriguez has a longer reach than a guy like George St. Pierre. He's taller than George St. Pierre. And even BJ Penn had struggles getting in on the inside of the striking of GSP. And GSP, I think, is not unorthodox as Yair Rodriguez. So it would really have to be a luck of circumstance where Yair slips onto like a kick almost, and then BJ Penn pounces on a single leg, takes him down, and then works that rear naked choke, which is he's known for. But again, I think that's very slim to happening.
Yeah, the odds of that are pretty slim, man. I mean, it would be insane if it did, and I would probably freak the hell out. But yeah, as a hardcore BJ Penn fan, we just gotta admit ourselves that it's fucking over.
It is,
and I think we all have done that, except for him, maybe. So
yeah, I agree.
I don't know, man. It's a fight game, It's some of these guys that just have that crazy mental attitude that made them great in the first place, but it's always going to be their downfall. You mentioned B-Hop. He's got that same attitude where he just believes until he's fucking 70 that he can beat anybody, and that's going to get you knocked out and just hurt. So.
And unfortunately, I don't think it's anything that these fighters can avoid, because I think the type of mentality it takes to be these high-level fighters is that sort of egotistical mentality. You have to think you're the greatest. It's that like self-fulfilling prophecy. You think you're the greatest, you believe you're the greatest, then therefore you will end up being the greatest. Like that's a little simplistic view of it, but I think that sort of mentality is why these boxers or these fighters having that sort of mentality is common, is because that's what it takes.
Exactly, man. I mean, you're not going to step in there if you don't believe that you're the baddest motherfucker on the planet, right?
Like Michael Jordan,
and
Kobe
BJ
Bryant,
has always believed that.
Like, there's been great athletes that have that mentality, like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Floyd Mayweather had that mentality, even though I may not like Floyd Mayweather. He had that mentality that I'm the greatest, and none of these guys can say I'm not, because that's not reality, Like, to be a top-level athlete, your version of reality has to be warped than everyone else's.
Yep, exactly, man.
Now do you know
I guess we'll be tuning in anyway, man, and hopefully there will be a merciful stoppage, and it won't be a prolonged beatdown.
Oh, man, I feel like it's going to be prolonged, man. It's BJ Penn. His chin takes up too much damage, man. It's going to be like a fourth round, like, mercy stoppage by the ref.
Yeah, we'll see, man. Are there any other fights you're looking forward to for this card?
Joe Lozon is fighting Marcin Held. I think grappling wise, that's a very intriguing matchup. Court McGee is fighting Ben Saunders. John Moraga is fighting Sergio Pettis. Obviously, Sergio Pettis is the brother of Anthony Pettis.
Yep.
What else is on the card? I thought there was one more. No, I think that's it. The rest of the card pretty much sucks.
It's pretty dire. I mean, I love Joe Lozon, man. He's so fun.
He's
to watch.
awesome.
Like, seriously, his his submissions are so fun to watch. I mean, if some people say that jiu-jitsu is boring, then you just got to watch Joe Lozon, man, because he makes MMA jiu-jitsu so fun and exciting, man. But I don't really know much about his opponent, though, this Marcin Held guy.
He fought in Bellator. I don't know if you get Bellator over there in Dubai.
I mean, once in a while, I'll watch a card if somebody's on it that I like, but in general, I don't really watch that much Bellator.
Held is he's a great grappler. He's more of like a leg lock guy, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. This is one of those fights that's gonna be either like a really like a first round, like round of the year sort of like fight, where they both just going at it, a lot of scrambles. But I think Joe Lozon hits harder, better striking. I think he has better grappling too. I think Joe Lozon should win this bout. Court McGee, I'm a big fan of because he used to train with Chuck Liddell, and Chuck Liddell is from my parents' hometown in San Luis Obispo, actually. So, and Court McGee is like a heroin addict. He was a heroin addict, and he's all cleaned up, and he's a big activist in that community and getting that awareness out there. So I really respect Court McGee. Ben Saunders is a great grappler. I think that fight's really going to be intriguing. Obviously, Sergio Pettis has some sort of fame attached to his name because of his brother. But I think John Moraga is one of those guys that's just like a Jorge Masvidal, is just a good fighter. Like he's just not really great at anything, but he's just good at a lot of things. So that should be a really intriguing matchup. Also, I think opening up the card is Frankie Saenz, and he was a Colombian Olympic wrestler, like one of the greatest Colombian wrestlers of all time, and now he's fighting in the UFC, obviously. So you're gonna see some wild takedowns in that fight. Just saying, like some like super like WWE throws. Like I guarantee it.
Is Court McGee? Is he fighting the old school like Ben Saunders? That was in the UFC,
dude.
Like back in the day?
Ben Saunders, dude.
Holy shit! How did he get back to the UFC?
Well, Ben Saunders was fighting in Bellator for a while and like some other regional promotions. Came back to the UFC, won a fight, and this was like maybe a year or two ago. Lost a fight. They cut him. Ben Saunders goes and wins 2 more fights on the regional scene, and they bring him back.
Wow!
Right, and the OG Ben Saunders with the big like mutton chops. Like the beard?
Yeah,
exactly. That motherfucker, dude.
Yo, man. I'm actually just checking his record because I can't believe that. And he's like, apparently he's been fighting a lot in Bellator. I mean, I'm just seeing it now, almost like 10 fights in Bellator.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, he was doing like good in Bellator. I mean, like he's not gonna be great. He's not top 15, but he's an entertaining guy that's worthy of a paycheck and worthy on undercards and stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, I thought he would be older. He's only like 33 now, I'm seeing.
Remember, back in the day, like a decade ago, all these guys were like 20, 23 in the UFC, man. Like, all these guys were super young back then. We just didn't realize it. Because that's all we had was these guys. You had like the old school like Royce Gracies, and then you had like the Matt Hughes, Ben Saunders, all those people, and they're roughly the same age, like there's a big gap.
Yeah. Dude, I'm looking at his record. It's just taking me back. I mean, he even fought Marcus Davis, man. That was the Irish hand grenade, right? That guy.
Dude, Nate Diaz tore him up.
Oh, that is some old school shit, man. I'll tune in, but I mean, the Court should take this easily, right?
I'm favoring Court. I'm favoring Joe Lozon. I'm gonna go with I think John Moraga is the upset, actually, the underdog, mainly because I think it's Sergio Pettis. So I'm gonna go John Moraga. And I'll go with Frankie Saenz, and the undercard I don't care about. But yeah, I think this can be a really entertaining little sort of card on Sunday. A little midday card for me. I think it's probably gonna be like 5 a.m. for you guys over there. So good luck on that.
Yeah, I always watch UFC these days in the morning, man. I tend to get up and go to work, and then when I'm sitting in my car or whatever, I'll just be streaming it. Yeah, that's how I do it these days, man. It's tough. I mean, back when I lived in Europe, I could sometimes stay up and watch them, or take a little nap and then wake up again. But these days, it's tough, man. But what was that?
I said it is, man. Like trying to watch like UK like boxing, that shit's hard sometimes. It is. Or like Russian boxing, that's the worst. That is the worst.
Yeah, but I saw a fight though that is must see, man. That's going to be coming up now. I mean, I'm so pumped that Fergie and Khabib are going to get it on, man.
Okay. Let's briefly talk about that, and then we're gonna get out of here. Khabib Nurmagomedov, one of my favorite guys on Twitter, honestly, and I don't even know if it's him doing it, but he has such a great follow on Twitter. And then you have Tony Ferguson, who's really like just like a no, like gives no fucks, like doesn't give a shit about media, but that guy can fucking scrap. Okay, that guy. Oh my! This matchup is everything I love about MMA, right?
Man, this is. I was really worried that wasn't going to happen because Ferg wanted more money, but I think it was just inevitable, man. This was a fight that was meant to be, and I honestly, I've got a few buddies of mine that I talk MMA with, and I haven't made up my mind yet about this fight.
Me neither.
I think Khabib is maybe an obvious pick, but I think I don't think it's a wrap. Well, what do you think?
Here's the thing. I think that Tony Ferguson's issues is that he can be clipped on counter striking. Like Orlando Venata showed that he can be clipped on when Tony Ferguson comes inside, and I don't see Khabib clipping him. Obviously, Khabib has the wrestling pedigree to be able to take down Tony Ferguson. Now, Tony Ferguson's a great wrestler too. I think he was a D1 wrestler. So I think that, and plus he has just amazing jiu-jitsu. Like, I think Tony Ferguson's jiu-jitsu is top-notch in the division. One of the best in the division, I think. Like, I would love to see him and Nate Diaz grapple, personally. But I think that Tony Ferguson presents a lot of issues off his back, off his scrambles, that Khabib really hasn't faced yet in the UFC. Now, likewise, I don't know if Tony Ferguson has faced a wrestler on Khabib's level, because I don't know if there is a wrestler on Khabib's level. He's that good. Luke Thomas of MMA Fighting did a breakdown of Khabib's wrestling a few weeks back, and it was truly something just to like listen to and have his wrestling really get broken down and his grappling really get broken down, because it is one of a kind. You can't get guys to come in and spar with you that are that type of grapplers, because no one makes them like that. I think on the feet, obviously Tony has the advantage. I think on the ground, Khabib has a slight advantage. Man, this is a tough fight. I'm gonna lean Tony right now. It's really preliminary. This is not my final prediction, but man, it's hard. It's a 50-50 fight. It is.
It's crazy, right? And then there's a lot of elements to this fight which are so interesting, and you named one of them just now, which is obviously the ground, but also standing up. I personally think that Khabib's striking is not very good. I mean, when I saw him
it's not.
Against Johnson, he was very, very, very sloppy, but also he seems to take a lot of risks rushing in. He just comes in looking for the takedown, but his defense is very shaky, and he's just not a good stand-up fighter. And if a guy like Johnson can light him up a little bit, Ferg could do it, but he's not a very traditional boxer or kickboxer.
No, he's not.
He doesn't stay disciplined on his jab, even though this would be a fight where he should use his reach. And
he actually has a really good jab, I would say. I think Tony Ferguson has a very tremendous jab for his unorthodox striking. But you're right, he doesn't use it. He comes in with like a standing elbow instead of coming behind the jab, or like a spinning elbow. Like, he comes in off of really weird strikes that are easy to counter. That's why I say, like, you can counter Tony, but I don't know if Khabib is the guy to counter Tony. Like if it's Conor McGregor versus Tony Ferguson, I'm going Conor McGregor purely because of the counter striking. Because I think because Tony has been finished before, I believe in the amateurs, and I think that Tony has a chin that can be hit. He's not hiding his chin.
No, absolutely, and he's been tagged many times in his fights. He's wide open, and he's kind of the definition of a freestyle fighter. He doesn't really have one particular style. He will throw all kinds of wild shit, but sometimes I feel like he's doing it for the sake of doing it, and he's not doing it with a specific game plan or a specific intention. He's just having fun in there, but that's not always going to work in your favor. And when he was fighting that dude that you just mentioned, I forgot his name, but he was even coming up from a weight class below, right? He was much smaller than Tony, and he was just outboxing him at one point. And I'm thinking, like, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence that you are going to punish Khabib for his mistakes on the feet. And I think it's inevitable that the takedown will come, and then we're in a different world. Then we got to see, okay, how strong is his jiu-jitsu really off of his back? Because Khabib as well, man, he's just so physically strong.
And it's not just his wrestling. His jiu-jitsu is good too. His grappling is good too. Like, that's the thing. Yeah. Like, that's why I still give him the advantage on the ground. Obviously the takedown ability goes to Khabib no matter what. Like, Khabib will be able to take down Tony Ferguson. I do not doubt that at all. But once it gets to the ground, that's when it comes to grappling jiu-jitsu. And I think both guys have different ways of doing it, but I think they have excellent grappling. And it's going to be very intriguing on the ground. Briefly though, the guy that Tony Ferguson beat, Lando Venata, he did not come up a weight class. He is a 155 guy. And he actually just fought on the Ronda Rousey card, I believe, and had a spinning heel kick knockout win over John McDessie. And Lando Venata is a great prospect. So it's one of those fights where it's like, I don't know if Tony just underestimated him. I don't know if Lando is that good, because Lando is a hot prospect. So I'm not going to say that, if a bum like Lando, because he's not a bum, can hit Tony, then anyone can hit Tony, because I don't know if that's true. You know what I'm saying?
I actually thought that. So he was from the same weight class. That's strange. Yes. Maybe just because he looked small that I thought that. But he definitely eyes very, very small. I mean, I don't know what he normally comes in at, but
now,
he looks
Tony's
like he
a big guy though.
Fight a weight class below.
Tony's a big guy. Tony could fight at welterweight, in my opinion. He has like a Nate Diaz build where he like a 165 weight class, 165 pound weight class would be more ideal. Or like a 160 or 163 or something like that, but because he does cut a lot of weight to 155. Tony's a big guy for that weight division.
Like, that's what I also thought of Khabib when he was facing Johnson. I just thought, like,
Khabib's
look at the size of this kid, man. How did he make weight? Like, the size of his limbs and everything, and the thickness of it as well. His legs and his wrists and everything. He's just a fucking gorilla, and then once he gets on top of you, night, that ground and pound is just vicious, man.
Yeah. Now we're gonna get out of here because it's late over there in Dubai. I don't want to keep you up too late, Kimo. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me and breaking down some MMA. I would love to have you on again sometime. If you have any more of the Boxing Coalition guys that want to come and talk MMA with me and with you, and we can just have our own little thing over here, let me know, man. That door is always open for you guys. I have nothing but respect for you guys over in Boxing Coalition and what you guys do. It's literally one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. I wish you guys would do it more often.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I appreciate it. And hell yeah, we can do this again, man. There's a lot of great fights coming up, so there's plenty to talk about.
Now, give out if you want to give out your social media information to the listeners.
Yeah, man, if you want to troll me on Twitter, just add me at Kimo_KM.
And I am Matthew Hunter, founder of Mixed Combat Radio and co-producer and co-host of The Boxing Voice. It has been a great time with you breaking down BJ Penn's career, his matchup this Sunday, and of course, Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson, the interim lightweight championship going down UFC 209. I can't wait to see you again, Kimo. I can't wait to talk to you again, brother. You have a good one.
Thanks, bro. You too.
Peace.